On a cold Friday soaked in endless autumn drizzle, billionaire Victoria Hale sat alone in her glass penthouse, pale, breathless, and slowly falling apart. Doctors found nothing. Assistants whispered. The board grew restless. But no one knew the truth. Until Daniel Brooks, a quiet cleaning single dad working night shifts, noticed something no one else did. A scent, a pattern, a lie hidden behind perfection. What he uncovered wasn't just a habit, it was a secret that could destroy her empire or save her life. And on that rain-soaked Friday, everything began to unravel. The rain had been falling since Tuesday, not hard rain. Not the kind that announces itself with thunder and drama. Just the thin, persistent kind, the kind that doesn't make a sound against glass but fogs everything beyond arm's reach into a gray smear. By Friday evening, the entire city had dissolved into it. Buildings blurred. Streetlights bled. The world outside the floor-to-ceiling windows of the 42nd floor looked like a painting left in the rain too long. Victoria Hale stood with her back to it. She was holding a tablet, reading a performance report for the third time. Not because she hadn't understood it the first 2 times she had, completely, in the first 30 seconds, but because standing here, reading, gave her something to do with her hands, something to do with her face, a reason to keep her eyes pointed away from the reflection in the glass. The penthouse was flawless. Every surface had been chosen with exactness. Pale ash floors, low cream furniture, steel accents that caught light and held it like something precious. The art on the walls had been selected by a woman in Vienna who'd spent 6 weeks choosing each piece. The temperature was held at exactly 68 degrees Fahrenheit year-round. There were no personal photographs, no clutter, no evidence that anyone had ever lived here in the imperfect, sprawling way that humans tend to live. It was the most expensive space Victoria had ever occupied, and it felt like no place at all. She had designed it to feel like this, though she had not understood, when she was designing it, that that was what she was doing. She had told herself she preferred simplicity. She had told herself that a clear environment produced clear thinking. She had told herself many things that contained approximately 70% of the truth, which was a ratio she'd found professionally effective and personally insufficient. She set the tablet down on the marble counter. The cough came quietly, a dry, compressed thing, the kind you try to finish in one movement so no one hears it. She pressed 2 fingers to her lips and waited for it to pass. It passed. She straightened her blazer, exhaled carefully through her nose, and picked up the tablet again. Miss Hale. Her assistant, Claire, appeared in the doorway, early 30s, perfectly put together. The kind of efficient that bordered on invisible. Doctor, Mercer's office confirmed your appointment for Monday. Cancel it. A pause. This is the 3rd time. I know how many times it is, Claire. Another pause. Longer. Yes, ma'am. The door closed without a sound. That was one of the things Victoria had selected in this space. The doors were fitted with soft, close hinges. No slamming. No accidental noise. Everything here moved in controlled silence, and it had started to feel, in the last few months, less like luxury, and more like something being held very, very still. She walked to the window. The city below was lit and blurred. She watched a line of taillights crawl south across the bridge, slow and orange and patient. Somewhere in the middle distance, a building was going up. Cranes lit green against the dark sky, standing motionless in the still air. She almost didn't notice the man in the hallway. Almost. He was pushing a cart past the glass partition that separated her private office from the corridor. She caught him in her peripheral vision, first a figure moving at that particular pace of someone who has learned to be invisible. Slow enough not to startle. Quiet enough not to be acknowledged. He wore a gray uniform, sleeves slightly too short, a company logo on the chest she'd stopped reading years ago. He was looking at the floor. He always seemed to be looking at the floor. She'd seen him before, she realized. Several times, probably, but she'd never cataloged him. He was simply part of the building's operation, like the HVAC system or the soft close hinges. He stopped at the corner of her office's exterior wall, bent to retrieve something near the baseboard. Stood, moved on. Victoria turned back to the window. The rain continued in its quiet, persistent way. She breathed in slowly, held it, and let it go. The tightness in her chest she had been ignoring for 4 months pressed back, once like a knuckle against a bruise. She ignored it. She was very good at ignoring it. Downstairs, in the maintenance break room on the 38th floor, Daniel Brooks poured himself a cup of coffee he wouldn't finish and sat down across from the window that looked out at the elevator bank. He was 41, with the kind of face that suggested he'd once been quick to smile and was now simply careful. Brown hair going gray at the temples. Hands that were clean but showed the evidence of years of cleaning other things slightly roughened, permanently careful in their movements. He pulled out his phone and looked at a photo. A girl, 8 years old, gap-toothed and laughing, holding up a drawing of something that might have been a horse or might have been a comet. His daughter, Amy, taken last Sunday. He stared at it for a moment, put the phone away, drank his coffee. In his mind, still, a small detail from the 42nd floor was filing itself under time's unusual asterisk. Something in the air near the northeast corner of the office suite. A faint chemical note, almost sweet, slightly acrid, familiar from somewhere he couldn't yet place. Too faint to act on, just present enough to remember. He told himself it was probably the cleaning solution from the floor above. He didn't quite believe it. The next Friday, the rain was still falling. Daniel arrived at 8 p.m. and worked through the floors in his usual order lobby. Executive suites on 38, the conference cluster on 39, and then up to 42 for the final sweep before midnight. He moved efficiently and without hurry, knowing each surface the way a reader knows a familiar book, where the dust settled fastest, where the glass picked up fingerprints, which trash bins overflowed and which barely filled. He had been cleaning this building for 11 months. In that time, he had developed a detailed, unspoken understanding of the building's rhythms. He knew which executives worked late and which ones only appeared late. He knew the floor that smelled of takeout every Thursday. He knew the room where someone had been crying again. He was not a man who inserted himself into other people's lives. He cleaned. He observed. He went home. But the 42nd floor had started to accumulate details that his mind refused to let go of. Tonight he noticed the trash bin near the window of Victoria Hale's private office. He noticed it not because it was full, it was only a quarter full, but because of what was in it. 3 white rectangles of folded paper, each no larger than a matchbook. Wrapped mints, the kind sold at checkout counters in boxes of 50. He'd seen 2 in the bin last week, 1 the week before. He didn't touch them. He emptied the bin, bagged the liner, replaced it. Moved on. On the credenza near the door, a box of tissues, nearly finished. The box had been full on Monday. He could tell because the brand was different from the standard issue tissue boxes the building stocked. This one had been brought in. Soft, 3-ply, the kind you buy for yourself when your sinuses are bad, or when you need them frequently enough to care about the quality. He made a note in the part of his mind where he kept track of things that didn't yet have explanations. On the small table near the east window, partially obscured by a potted orchid that had been placed there 3 weeks ago, he noticed the placement of the orchid, too. Slightly off-center in a room that was otherwise precisely arranged there sat a small air purifier, not the building's standard unit. A personal one. Compact, white, humming softly. The filter indicator light burned amber. The filter was overworked. Daniel crouched and looked at it without touching it. Amber meant it needed replacement. In a building with a controlled air circulation system, in a room this size, for that filter to be amber in, he tried to estimate 3 weeks? That was a lot of particulates. He stood up. The balcony door was cracked open 1/2 inch. A thin line of cold, damp air pressed through it. He could feel it from 3 feet away. Outside, The rain was still falling. The temperature was 51 degrees. He crossed to the door. Considered, did not close it. It was not his place to close it. But as he turned away, he caught something.